And welcome everybody to the final yard here on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I am your host in the backseat, Louis Sung, and I am joined by Chris Early and Eric Weideke, and also big thanks to my fiance Holly for driving me home from Biscayne Bay Brewing, which once again had a watch party that we are very grateful for them being our sponsors. Folks, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great, man. 2-0 feels amazing. How are you feeling today, Louis?
I was extremely nervous leaving the brewery. I was watching the game in the back seat of the truck, and I was like, "Oh, we're gonna do this again. We're gonna freak out, and we're gonna have a nightmarish evening." And then all of a sudden, things went our way. Just really quick here, Lex Boogie refs really tried everything they could to give the game. And I thought for sure that the Dolphins were the Dolphins fans out there are now very happy with the race. New England fans are thinking that they got paid off by Mike McDaniel now because of that last play to end that finally decided it. So we will go ahead and we'll get into all that. But before that, really quick, just want to go ahead and mention, as always, this show is brought to you by our good friends over at PrizePicks.com. Manny, pull up the graphic, please. PrizePicks.com is the revolutionary fantasy platform where you can now pick up to 6 different players across professional sports leagues, whether that's the NFL, the NBA, the MLB, one of each. It's up to you to decide. Just choose whether your chosen player more or less than their projected stat, which, by the way, if you picked River Craycraft and if you picked Braxton Bears, you on that. We will go ahead and be able to check that out. Use Flex Friday specials where you can get your money back if you lose or multiply the amount of money you can normally win. And all you have to do is just use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your initial deposit when you sign up. That's promo code 5, FIVE. Go to prizepicks.com, deposit your $100, and let PrizePicks give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with and get started winning today. And of course, big thank you, as always, to Big Biscayne Bay Brewing for the 5 Reasons Sports watch party. Great time as always. So hopefully we'll be able to do that again in the future and have more of you guys come on out to join us to watch football. But let's get into the actual football game, shall we? Miami Dolphins are now 2-0, and the New England Patriots are now 0-2, which means that Bill Belichick is no closer to getting to Don Shula's record than he was at the start of the season. That's always a good thing. And but I gotta tell you, I know Eric was trying to convince me really that, oh well, I was never worried. He's like off camera saying I was never worried. Listen, I was worried, and I think as soon as everybody saw Jason Sanders fail to kick that 55-yard field goal again, I feel like there was a vast majority of people that were starting to get this queasy feeling in their stomach that says, oh, I've seen this movie before. So, Eric, you're going to have to explain to me why you were not even remotely concerned, because I was extremely concerned.
So every Patriots drive, and we're going to talk more about the defense. Every Patriots drive in this game went about as smoothly as the roughest grain sandpaper that you can imagine. So I was just looking at how the defense had performed all game long against the Patriots, at this Patriots offense that was really not very good tonight, with a guy who, people tried to hype up, 300 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Eagles, like he was going to do anything this week. And to be fair, the defense last week didn't look very good, but this week they absolutely answered the call. They got the pressure that they needed. The coverage was great all game long in the secondary. They shut down the run game. I just never saw Mac Jones taking the Patriots all the way down the field, scoring, and then doing it again in overtime or what have you, and actually completing the comeback. I just never saw that in the cards tonight.
Duke, did you have that same level of confidence, or were you on my side of having this feeling of, uh-oh?
No, I was not at all confident. I was pacing back and forth. So mainly because what the first comment said, I was talking to myself or thinking out loud, and I was like, we cannot put this game in the hands of the officials. Now, it went our way, that final drive, but it was clearly short. There were several bad calls on the back end. I don't have the numbers pulled up right now as far as penalties. It seems like it was about even. But the touchdown drive shouldn't have counted. I mean, they even said on the broadcast it was illegal. So, I mean, I was like, I do not want a situation being at New England And given how they're a big draw team, I was like, I don't want to say any of this stuff's rigged, but they home teams tend to get calls. And I was like, I do not want a situation where they throw a pass in the end zone on fourth down. It's tipped up. It looks like the Dolphins win. And then there's this weak pass interference call where a guy looks at the receiver wrong or something. So that was what I was nervous about. I didn't think, like Eric, I didn't think New England's offense was that capable. The last touchdown drive they had was pretty much aided by defensive penalties. They don't get that drive without those penalties. So just, I was not confident in the fact that Miami would get a call. I'm glad that last one went their way, but that was what was making me more nervous than anything else. And the offense is like they had to run the ball, and they were doing it well. And then the snap. So used to, as a Dolphins fan in years past, whenever the quarterback would drop back, it was always kind of like this, oh no, what's going to happen now kind of feeling. Now, let's be honest, we've all been there. And now with Tua, it's not. I mean, yeah, he had the bad interception, whatever. I could swear the ball looked like it slipped out of his hand or something, but regardless. But now he's like, oh, well, he's going to do what he does, and he's very good at it. But you got bad snaps, and there was not just one bad snap tonight. There were several bad snaps. Ball coming out of there looks like it was shot out of a cannon, hit some right in the chest, just all over the place. And then the kicking game, of course, which was funny because I was kind of like, I hope he hits it, because I predicted on the pulse of a 27-17 victory, and I was like, hey, I'll get it. And then, of course, as soon as he shanked it, I was like, yeah, well, I should have known better. So,
yeah,
there was a lot of
Jason Sanders makes field goals ever.
Yeah, there's a lot of that's so Dolphins kind of moments that happened, and they finally prevailed. So,
but I want to talk about real quick here, because this was a game that during pregame with Ethan at Biscayne Bay Brewing, I thought that we were going to have this situation where, once again, the Dolphins just did not want to run the football. I thought for sure that we were going to carry on what we saw from the Chargers, and Mike McDaniel was just going to dial up Tua all night, all the time, to Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, forcing it in there. But as it turns out, the Dolphins went ahead and they did exactly what I've been begging them to do for the longest time. They went ahead and they ran the football. And oh my God, they ran the football a lot. Let me just hit you guys with some numbers here. So obviously Devon Achane got a carry. That was a 5-yard gain. Good for him. Savon Ahmed, 3 carries, 13 yards. Good for him. But let's talk about the real hero of the game here as far as the offense is concerned. 17 carries and 110 yards and 2 touchdowns for Raheem Mostert. Raheem Mostert, the guy that everybody was looking, supposedly they're trying to replace him. They don't like Raheem Mostert. They don't think that he's good enough. He's not going to be healthy. He's not going to. We never needed the fancy free agent. We did not need Jonathan Taylor. We still do not need Jonathan Taylor. We did not need Saquon Barkley. We did not need Josh Jacobs. We did not need Derrick Henry. We did not need Dalvin Cook, and I was on the Dalvin Cook train. But Raheem Mostert is showing everybody why he is definitely the running back for the Miami Dolphins, and why he's the starter, why he's the dude that everybody's happy about. So is it 18 for 121? It says 17 for 110 on the box.
I've got
it's 18 for 121.
Okay, so my bad. 18 for 121. Even better. So it just goes to show you that if the Dolphins really want to do it, they can run the football with just like any other team out there. They can run the ball whenever they feel like it. So it just boils down to, do they want to run the football that day? Apparently tonight, they decided they wanted to. This game went by really fast, and thank goodness it did, because I don't know if my heart could have taken it if it lasted longer. But Raheem Mostert, man, props to him, and kudos to everybody else for making sure that it happened. Offensive line, once again, yeah, Tua finally got sacked today. But, hey, 1 sack in 2 games for this Miami Dolphins offensive line, that is big time as far as I'm concerned.
And I think a lot of the running aspect was there toward the end, it was kind of killing the clock. But early on, a lot of it was the defensive formations they were throwing out there. A lot of lighter boxes, a lot of safeties. They were trying to take Tyreek Hill away, trying to take the passing game away, and they were going to run it and say, we're going to expect, our guys to rally and tackle. And the Dolphins really made them pay. The one thing about the running game I'm not a fan of were the cute little trick plays that went for negative yards.
You don't like Eric Ezukanma as Deebo Samuel?
Well, it's not that. It's not necessarily the end arounds, but it's like you had one time it was like 2nd and 7 or something like that, and then you try to run it with one of those plays and you lose 2 yards. And they did it again. It's like just, once it's okay, particularly early in the game. Later, you just run the ball. Just run the ball up the middle. Run what was working for you, and those weren't. So, I don't mind if Ezukanma gets carries. I don't mind how they come about doing that stuff. But just, limit some of that silliness to, first quarter gimmicks, not third quarter, fourth quarter. When you're needing to run the ball and really ice a team and put them away, especially a team like New England. As much as we like to think that they're kind of a weaker opponent, the lesser team in the division, so to speak, they're still well coached and they've got decent players, and they're probably the only team in the NFL that you can truly say that the sum of the parts is greater, or the sum of the parts is greater than the parts themselves. Like, Miami has these really talented receivers and talented players at various positions. New England doesn't necessarily have that level, but as a unit, they overall play very well. And so you can't get cute when you're trying to beat a Belichick team. And, I was not a fan of that, particularly with the way Mostert was running the ball and the way Ahmed was running the ball. And I know he went out, they said, with an injury, but A-Chain got 5 yards. I actually had a second carry that was called back due to a penalty, but you were running the ball well doing that. Just keep doing that.
Yeah, I like that a little bit, though. You can't just dismiss, you can't play it off the results, okay? I personally feel like if those plays had worked, we would not be looking at these people thinking, oh, well, we shouldn't be doing stuff like that. I personally think that if it had worked, let's say instead of losing 2 yards, they actually gained 12 yards on that play, then we'd be looking at that play and thinking, oh, what a great and creative moment for them to go ahead and do that. It's all based on how it ends up working. If it works, nobody says anything. If it doesn't, then you're an idiot. It's the same thing as calling on 4th and 1 in the middle of the second quarter, and you don't really have it. It's 4th and 2, and you go for it, you're a genius. And when you fail, then everybody looks at you like, what the heck were you thinking in that moment? So at that point, I feel like we can't look at it that way as far as play calling goes. We'll always complain about play calling to some extent because that's what we do as analysts and stuff like that. But I will go ahead and I'll say this. I do agree with you that if something is working, you should keep doing it until it doesn't work anymore. And Raheem Mostert was working all night long. 17 carries. Everybody keeps talking about how the Dolphins needed a bell cow running back, right? Does 17 carries not qualify as a bell cow? In my opinion, it does. I think that's good enough for me.
Okay, so I'm gonna be the wet blanket on the Raheem Mostert parade, even though I shouldn't be. He absolutely deserves all the flowers and then some. He does. I'm not saying that he doesn't.
Okay, so
I'm not taking anything away from Raheem, but what I'm saying is, so the people, if I were to just to go back and forth here, what you're advocating for, Lewis, is the dependable, fuel efficient car that gets you from point A to point B. It gets the job done and it does the job very well. What I think a lot of people want here is, if you can go out and get yourself a Lamborghini and it's attainable, why not? Because
I'm not mortgaging my house.
With the talent at the wide receiver position, give him something, give him a little bit more, and just see what he does with it. I'm not saying that Raheem Mostert is bad or that he isn't a fit for the offense, that he shouldn't be. I'm just saying if you can make a strength even stronger, why not?
Because I'm not mortgaging the foundation of my house to buy that Lamborghini. That's why.
We're talking about a mid-round pick here. Anything that's
No,
done at
for
the
Jason,
deadline
for
won't
who?
go
Who
for
are we
anything.
getting? Who? No. All these guys that we've been chasing after, aside from Dalvin Cook, who are you only getting a mid-round pick for? Who?
Okay. So let's say at the deadline, do you think the Raiders are going to be very good? Do you think the Titans are going to be very good? Do you think the Colts are going to be very good? That's going to
They
be
are
3
not giving up
teams.
their star running backs without anything less than a second-round pick. At
They
worst.
walk for a third. They walk for a third in free
No,
agency.
I
If they
don't buy
signed a
it.
1-year deal and they know that they're going to let the guy walk regardless, they may as well do it. I'm just saying it can't happen.
I think you could get Henry for less than a second round pick because of his age, his contract. I think that you could play that card and say, well, he's not probably going to walk and get a big contract, so they're probably not going to get much compensation wise as far as the comp picks. They may, but it also depends on who else they sign. So I don't know what their cap situation looks like or what they're going to do next year, but I think and you got to remember, Miami doesn't have a third or a fourth, so it's probably going to be a 2025 or it's going to be a package of picks. But anyway, I think that would be a guy that you would go for just simply because the cost is going to be good enough. Now, if Jonathan Taylor does become available, he's the guy that you might spend higher for simply because you are signing him to a long-term deal. You're getting him in there, and he's going to get a 5-year deal, and you're planning on having him as a piece for the future. Whereas Henry, I think they may do some cap magic, maybe sign him to extend him to like a 2-year deal or something like that. Convert. He's got some void years on his contract, and I think that the Titans have to pay that. I don't know all the cap magic, so if I'm wrong on that, I apologize. But if they have to pay that, Miami, he's got it's basically a 1-year, $10 million deal. So you'd say, well, we'll give you a 2-year, $10 million deal. We'll guarantee most of that. It becomes a $5 million cap hit or something, and you kind of get out from under that big hit this year. But I think he's probably the most attainable for the best price. Everybody else is going to be a little more expensive. But, and again, I mean, you just, if the opportunity is there, you got to look at it. And I mean, heck, those teams won today. So the Raiders, the Colts, and the Titans are all 1-1. So,
and I do apologize for successfully derailing the post-game show and going into Lewis's favorite topic of running back talk. Because there really are a lot other really, really positive takeaways from this game aside from that. And I think it's time that we get a little bit more positive. They're 2-0. They just went into Foxborough and they beat the Patriots after going on the road and beating the Chargers. I think we all looked at this first 2 games of the season and we're like, man, that's a really tough start for the Dolphins. So to come out of that 2-0 was fantastic. Vic Fangio tonight, I mean, you want to talk about a bounce back performance. The defense just from week 1 to week 2, the difference was so stark. And I'm sure it's because of the fact that the Patriots might have a little bit worse of an offensive line. But you look at guys like AVG, Bradley Chubb, Zach Sealer, Christian Wilkins got in on the action. The defense was just, it was all hands on deck there. And that was the number one takeaway from me, is that they proved that they can win games 36-34. And then when the offense is being contained a little bit more, they can win games that way too. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that the winning ugly has its merits, and this was not necessarily an ugly game, but it was not what we wanted to see, not particularly with the way the flow of the game was going. So you come out, you get a score right before half, 17-3. You're like, well, let's double up. Let's make it 24-3. And I think it had Miami done that, maybe gone up 31-10 or something like that. I mean, New England doesn't have much of a chance. Now they might throw some garbage time points in there, but it was just like they kept it close. There was two interception. The defense bailed them out.
Yep.
Van Ginkel got a big sack there. The punt netted, I think it was like 12 yards or something that they gained from the original line of scrimmage from the interception. So, all in all, it was not a bad thing. But it showed that they can win. And again, it's a tough environment. It's hard to win in Foxborough. I don't care who you are. We saw that last week with the Eagles. We saw it this week with the Dolphins. And they're going to be a tough out for a lot of teams, even though their offense isn't where it needs to be. Now, like you said, the offensive line was banged up, and I think that helped. I think if they had their starters, that maybe we don't see the kind of pressures that we had tonight, and I don't think we see the running game have as much effect. But they did have their starting interior offensive line for most of the game. And so the fact that they were not able to run the ball against with those guys, and they were a little banged up too, but they played. So, that's a positive thing. I mean, I don't know what was going on with Eli Apple. I know that the last penalty they called to him was not much of a penalty at all.
Yeah.
But they were picking on him a little bit. So you got to figure Cam Smith's probably going to get in there and see some action at some point. And then when Jalen Ramsey comes back, that's not going to be. We're not going to have to worry about that as much. So we'll chalk that up to a bad game for him. So yeah, there's some positives, there's some negatives, but you're 2-0. Two of those 2 wins on the road. You've got 7 road games, and with the 8th road game being a neutral site game, so not really necessarily a home field advantage. And it happens to be one of the toughest places to play in the entire NFL, and you're playing that overseas. So you've got all of your home games left and fewer road games. So winning on the road is tough in the NFL. So, I mean, you take care of your business at home, you win some road games, you're in the playoffs.
And then the other thing that I want to touch on is I think when people go through the box score in this one, they're going to come away with the impression that, I think when you look at it, you're looking at Tua 21 of 30, 249, a touchdown and an interception. The interception basically an arm punt on the deep ball to Tyreek there. I think that there is something to be said about this game that he had, because I think last year this turns into one of those nightmare kind of disaster games, because last year we had seen Tua at his best, the performance against the Lions, the performance against the Ravens. We had kind of seen that surgical precision, that we've started to expect a little bit. But I think if this game happens last year, it's one of those games against the Chargers or against the 49ers. And I want to talk about how outside of the deep ball to Tyreek, where Tua that was the first time I felt like he wasn't taking what the defense was giving him. All night long, he was extremely, extremely disciplined in taking what the defense gave him, not trying to make too much out of a situation. I saw on the very first drive, he goes and he doesn't have anyone there. And instead of just panicking and throwing a ball that he shouldn't throw, he rushes up the middle, gains a few yards, slides down, avoids the hit. I think that there was something to be said about the measured aspect that Tua played in this game. And I think that there's also something to be said about the fact that, his D plus or C game in 2023 looks a lot different and better than it did in 2022.
Yeah, and that's what you want to see from Tua, is you want to see the bad games. You want this to be a bad game for him. And it wasn't a bad game. I mean, you compare it to last week and the numbers, and you're like, well, it's not what you wanted to see. But if this is the low point, we'll take it. And again, it's a Belichick defense. They do have some good players on that defense. and that they took Tyreek Hill away. Jalen Waddle was the beneficiary. Braxton Berrios was the beneficiary. So I think they played smart. They took what the defense gave them, and yeah, the arm pump was not what you want to see, but he's a gambler. He's gonna make those, and if he throws one of those a game and we're still winning games, we'll take it.
I apologize for disappearing. The running back talk was so bad that my internet literally decided it was noping itself out of there. So that's my final word on that. So what did I miss while I was gone?
Yeah, so we just got done touching on the defense and the Dolphins showing that they can kind of win in multiple ways. And I do want to give you your opportunity to kind of chime in on that, because we did see the defense obviously just a massive step from week 1 to week 2. The pass rush was there. It just felt like everything came together.
No, 100%. And I was, quite frankly, the one I was most impressed with out of all this was Bradley Chubb. Like, I'm going to give Andrew Van Ginkel yours too, and he deserves them, don't get me wrong. But the guy that was on the hot seat, so to speak, the guy that everybody was looking at and saying, why aren't you doing more? Why are you not being the guy that we expected you to be when we traded a first-round draft pick for you? Well, tonight, he did exactly that. 5 tackles, a sack, and, of course, he forced a fumble earlier in that game as well. So I'm not sure what else you could ask for from a guy like that, unless you're just wanting even more sacks than what he already got. Bradley Chubb did everything that we needed from him to do today. He was there all over the field, and there were some moments where he was getting double teamed. So if there were times where he wasn't getting to the quarterback, there was a very good chance that it's because he had 2 blockers on him. So we saw tonight firsthand that if you let Bradley Chubb get enough snaps on you, he's going to beat you eventually, and he's going to make a play on you. So is he the best pass rusher in football? No. Is he even one of the top 10 pass rushers in football? I probably would have to say no to that as well. But doggone it, man, he's good enough to get the job done. He sets the edge well. He's a solid tackler, makes plays. And you know what? Sometimes when people talk about Bradley Chubb, we're not even acknowledging the stuff that doesn't show up on the box score. Is he taking up more blockers so that other players can get in there? Again, Bradley Chubb got doubled a lot in this game. So if Jalen Phillips had been there, and if he had been healthy and playing, he easily could have gotten a few sacks himself, and it would have been thanks to Bradley Chubb. So, or alternatively, they decided to double Jalen Phillips, and then Bradley Chubb is the guy getting the sacks instead. So one way or another, somebody was going to get to Mac Jones. And it just so happened today it was Bradley Chubb. And oh, by the way, David Long Jr., who's another guy who everybody was kind of raising an eyebrow at, he got a sack in there today. Christian Wilkins got a sack today. Andrew Van Ginkel got a sack today. Again, he did a fantastic job today. And not to dismiss it or anything, but Javon Holland, 6 tackles, 5 assists. So I don't know if that was the prize picks prop or not. I think he might have gotten still.
It was 6.5 tackles.
Yeah, so he was
assists.
1 shy. But you know what? Still, Javon Holland, he's all over the place too, making big plays in the backfield. There are playmakers on this team. All Vic Fangio has to do is, it's almost like in a way we were kind of missing the point of Vic Fangio's genius. I think a lot of us were looking at that Chargers game and we were extremely frustrated with the whole situation because they couldn't seem to stop the run. They weren't able to do anything to make it so that it wasn't a thing anymore. But tonight, it was very different, and yet everything still looked very similar in a way. He made an adjustment. I do believe that. He made an adjustment. It's still very much the same coverages, but he's getting aggressive a little more often. Not a lot, but enough that it throws off the other team to the point where they're not 100% sure what's going to be happening at any given moment, and that made all the difference. You don't get 4 sacks by accident. Yeah, I know New England's offensive line was not at that time, and I also know that Mac Jones is not exactly the most pocket presence aware guy in the world. But nevertheless, 4 sacks, that's very impressive, and that definitely bolsters up the season numbers for this defense. I'm very happy with what happened tonight as far as the defense is concerned. Doesn't stop me from being concerned at the last minutes because that's when you run out of time and you can't count on Tua to save you. But all in all, as far as I think the defense did a fantastic job, and hopefully when the Denver Broncos come to town next week, we'll be looking at them and saying, all right, let's see what you can do now.
Yeah, the the thing about the offensive line for New England is they were beat up, and you had 2 backup tackles, and they played that way. New England schemed around that. I mean, Mac Jones, they showed one. He had a pass out in under a second. They showed another one that was like a second and a half. I mean, they were throwing short. They were throwing super quick. They were getting the ball out of his hands very quickly to mitigate that pressure. And Miami still got 4 sacks because at some point they had to hold it a little bit longer, and it worked. And I think you saw Vic dial up some blitzes. I don't know what the percentages were, but you saw that. That's how David Long got the sack. You saw some of that at other times. And that was one way to mitigate. It's like, well, we're going to, they're going to throw the ball quick, so we need to get there a little quicker. But the sacks that they got, well, first of all, Andrew Van Ginkel was robbed of a second sack. That was a fumble. The ball was not in the grasp. It was not under control. I don't care what they say on TV. So that was annoying. But either way, they did well given the circumstances. So you expected the defensive line, particularly the interior, to eat up New England's offensive line being beat up, and they did. The pass rush got home against some backup tackles, despite the fact that they were throwing quick. So they did. So I think Denver poses a different test because they do have some talent on the offensive line. But yeah, we'll get to that point when the time comes. So yeah, the defense stepped up big time today.
There was one concern that I have, though. I don't want Eli Apple playing anymore. Like, I really don't. How many times did he get called for a penalty today? Like 5 times, it felt like.
There were several. That last one was, I mean, even the one that X had was really bad. They were just some kind of ticky-tack bad calls. But
I will admit that, yes.
Now, during the game, and that's why I don't like to tweet during the game, is because I'm very reactive. But who did we used to say Devontae Parker owned when he played for the Dolphins? That was Stephon Gilmore.
Oh,
right. Like,
when he played for the Dolphins. Okay,
yeah, when he played for the Dolphins. He was taking Stephon Gilmore's lunch money at times. So yeah, we like to say, well, he's not that good, and whatever about that, but he does seem to do well against good cornerbacks. He has a history of that. So I'll give you Eli Apple a little bit of credit there. The penalties were off. I don't know that it's getting a little touchy in my opinion. You got to let these guys play a little bit, but yeah, I'll give him a little bit of slack for that because Devontae Parker has a history of doing that to guys. But all in all, they took guys away. They were having to throw short, or they were throwing these screens and other types of passes. So, if it happens again, then it becomes a trend, and then we've got issues. But he played well against San Diego, Los Angeles, whatever. So tonight he got picked on a little bit.
We'll never stop calling it San Diego.
No, it's San Diego. He got picked on a little bit, but they all stepped up when the time came. So,
all right, I'll give him that. But I will say I'm glad to see Xavier Howard making interceptions again, even if it was like right into it basically threw it to him. So, but even then, an interception is an interception. So I'll take it from Xavier Howard. It's good to see him getting back out there and doing some things. Jalen Ramsey is actually tweeting about it. I'm not sure what Xavier Howard wore to the stadium. Was Xavier wearing something interesting that I didn't notice? But apparently he knew that his dog was getting one today, whatever it is. I guess an interception. But I don't know. I don't know some of the lingo that is being used. Was Xavier wearing something new today that anybody could tell?
There was a clip of it when he walked in. I didn't see it very well, so I don't know.
Okay, so maybe it's like some new bling or something like that. I'm not a bling guy. I don't even like to wear a watch. It just weighs me down, it feels like. But in any case, so something else I wanted to quickly bring up here. So Durham Smythe, can we talk about Durham Smythe real quick? I want to talk about him because I feel like I don't think we expected him to be having as much of a role in the offense as he actually does. But even today, 3 catches for 23 yards. And that doesn't seem like a lot, but Durham Smythe is basically taking all the snaps that Mike Gesicki was getting. And what Durham Smythe is doing is that he's being asked to do a lot as a blocker, and it's working a lot. This offense seems to function much more efficiently, much more effectively with Durham Smythe rather than somebody like a Mike Gesicki. And we proved that last year. We're proving it even more now that all we have really are Durham Smythe kind of tight ends. In fact, I think he was playing almost most, if not all, the snaps on offense at the tight end position. Durham Smythe was rarely ever not on the field in some capacity. So it's pretty obvious that, yeah, they like him a lot more than we thought they did. And for all of us, including myself, who were looking at the Dolphins and thinking, why didn't you draft Sam Laporta? Why didn't you draft Darnell Washington? Why didn't you draft that kid out of Penn State that I can't remember his name right now? There are so many tight ends that went, and we thought, oh, this is where the Dolphins will pick a tight end. This is where the Dolphins will sign a tight end that we care about, not Eric Saubert or somebody like that. And all this time, they were looking at Durham Smythe and saying, we didn't pay him this money for no reason. He's our tight end one. And I'm like, I don't understand why. Well, now I do. I think Durham Smythe, I think we've all been underestimating Durham Smythe all this time. He's very Deion Sims-like in a way. Maybe he's a slightly better blocker, a little more slow, because Deion Sims was still much more effective as a pass catcher, I would say, more used than Durham Smythe is, but they're making it work. Durham Smythe can be a weapon in the offense if they decide it wants to. He doesn't have to be a 4.6 40-yard dash tight end in order to be effective in the run game. This dude is slow. He lumbers, but he's effective and he has soft hands. So I guess we have to apologize to Durham Smythe for underestimating him.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, you can go ahead,
Eric.
Okay. I mean, I think tight end is a position, and I think that it's something that we've learned over time. I mean, unless you're rolling a Travis Kelce or a Rob Gronkowski or a Darren Waller out there, realistically, you may as well have yourself a Durham Smythe. Because Durham Smythe is never going to blow your socks off, but he's going to do all the little things, and he's going to do them all pretty well. He's a pretty good catcher, pretty good blocker, pretty good route runner, knows where to be in the offense. And that's really, unless you have like a top 5 consensus tight end, that's really all you're looking for out of the tight end spot. So I think Durham Smythe is just fine, especially for this offense. I mean, I'm sure there are people that want a George Kittle, and I'm sure we'd all love to have a George Kittle if that option were on the table. But, it's just one of those things where unless you're trotting that guy out there, a Durham Smythe is as good an option as any.
Yeah, and I think you hit on the point I was going to get at is the fact that a lot of people see the big name tight ends or the guys that get a lot of targets, and they're primary weapons for their teams. Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, these guys are the number one receivers. And when, I don't know what the status is with Jalen Waddle now, but I mean, there's just only so many balls to go around in a game. And if you had Hill, Waddle, and then a tight end like, say, Travis Kelce, I mean, you can only throw the ball so many times. And I think fans kind of get enamored with this idea of like, well, we got to have a tight end that can do this and do that. It's going to get, 9 catches for 112 yards and 3 touchdowns kind of thing. But that's just not how this offense is going to work. This offense is going to run through Hill and Waddle. And then, they're going to mix it up with the run game or whatever else. But it's going to be Tua throwing to those 2 guys. They had 14 targets tonight, 15 targets on 29 total targets. So they got half of the targets. Everybody else getting 2 targets, 3 targets, things like that. So, could they have drafted a guy like Darnell Washington? Absolutely. He'd be a guy that, you could use on them same kind of routes. Is he a better blocker than Durham Smythe? That we don't know. But, and he does give you a little more athleticism than what Durham Smythe has. But for what they're going to use in the offense, you're absolutely correct. He's what they need. They don't need that guy that's going out stretching the field. They don't need that guy that's going to be seeing 7, 8, 9 targets a game like some of those big name guys are. Now, as much as we'd like that, and we'd love to see, Tua throwing for 400 yards on 50 attempts or whatever every week, it's just not going to happen. So, right now Smythe has 3 catches. He's for this game, he's got 6 total for the season. He's going to get in that probably 50 to 60 target range, the same as River Craycraft and Braxton Berrios. So that's what they're looking for. You'd like to see a third target kind of emerge and be kind of set themselves apart. But the way it's going right now, it's a committee approach. So you got Hill, you've got Waddle, and they're going to take the 50% to 60% of your targets, and then everybody else is going to be bunched up with the rest. So I agree with Durham Smythe. He's doing what they ask him to do, and he's a good, reliable check down option or a quick option that they can use. So yeah, I'm pleased with what I've seen from him.
Just to answer your question, though, Duke, about regarding Jalen Waddle. So he was being evaluated for a concussion, but it doesn't seem like he is all that messed up about it. He seems to be in high spirits. He was talking to his teammates in the locker room. So I would estimate that there's not really going to be any issues there. I think he'll be back next week for the Broncos.
It looked like he was kind of grabbing his side. So I know he had that issue in training camp, so I didn't know if it was a re-injury of that. So I wasn't sure.
I mean, yeah, but I think it's possible that he might have tweaked something. But I mean, if what they were talking about was a concussion, then the fact that everybody's not freaking out about it right now, I think he's okay. I think he's not concussed. He got hit on his noggin. I saw that earlier. So, but thankfully, it looks like we averted a crisis there. So if we're going to have him back next week for the Broncos, very good. I would rather try to be at full strength for as long as we can possibly handle it. Speaking of guys who are going to get back healthy, it's going to look like that Teron Armstead might be coming back next week, which I don't know. You guys tell me. I'm not going to advocate that Teron Armstead should not play because Kendall Lamb. I'm definitely not saying that. But with that being said, we have an interesting situation right now. Kendall Lamb is doing a fantastic job at the left tackle spot right now, as far as I'm concerned. He's doing great. I haven't seen him make any mistakes, really. He's done everything that you could possibly ask for. Teron Armstead is a superstar left tackle when he's healthy, or even when he's half healthy. Even when he's half healthy, he's a superstar left tackle. He's coming back next week. At least we hope he is anyway. I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be. He's been practicing all week. So you get Teron Armstead back at left tackle. What do you do with Kendall Lamb? Do you bench him and keep Austin Jackson at right tackle? Because I think that's what they're going to do. Or do you find somewhere for Kendall Lamb to play because you want your best guys out there?
I think that this is actually a really refreshing conversation for us to be having, considering the state that we all thought the offensive line was in going into the season. That's the beauty of it. Kendall Lamb is your swing tackle. And so when both of your starters are playing, Kendall Lamb will, be a bench guy. And I think that it is actually a credit to your depth at the tackle position that you have somebody of his quality as a depth piece. I know that we all want to have our best players out on the field, and I think that the Dolphins should not play Teron Armstead at this point unless he is 100% healthy, if that's possible for him this year. But at the end of the day, I'm not saying Kendall Lamb is bad and shouldn't play, but this is what it looks like to have good depth. You can't get all your best players on the field all the time. And I think Austin Jackson, especially on the right side, I don't want to start doing this thing where we're moving a guy from the left side to the right side and kind of switching up positions again. I think he's fine where he is on the left side. I want to keep things as simple as possible for him, at least for now, unless it becomes necessary. But for now, just, when Armstead comes back in, he can take it and then go ahead and then you go ahead and you let him be your fantastic depth, and you be happy with that at the tackle spots.
And as far as Austin Jackson is concerned, has he done anything to warrant being benched himself?
He's Austin Jackson. That's the thing.
I mean, yeah, fans are like that, but I mean, he's lost some reps, as has Kendall Lamb, as has any of the players. It's going to happen. Juwan Taylor got benched today, 4-year, $80 million deal for the Chiefs, and had 4 false start penalties. After that was a big deal on the Thursday night opener, and he got benched today. I think it was only for like 1 or 2 reps, but still, that's your big money tackle, and he got benched. So is Austin Jackson playing that poorly that you're like, well, and I get the concept of like, well, get your best 5 guys out there, but he's not done anything to warrant being benched. Now, if he was playing like a dog and they're having to cover for him and he's getting chip blocks or whatever else every single time, but he's not. So I agree. You got to keep you bring Armstead in, and then Kendall Lamb goes back, and then when you need him again, he's there, and you feel very comfortable with the situation. You can say, well, and Armstead has a history. He's an older player, so let's say he gets in, plays 3 games, tweaks something. Well, you're like, well, you know what? We'll sit you out, let you rest. We put Kendall Lamb in there, and we're not really going to miss that much. Now, I don't want to take away from Armstead and his talent, because he is a very, very talented left tackle. But the way Kendall Lamb has played, you can say, well, we can still run our same offense. We can run our concepts, and we're not going to be super concerned about allowing pressure with him in there. Now, you may be able to do more stuff with Armstead, but I think, you play Armstead when he comes in. The benefit is that Lamb is playing so well that you don't have to rush Armstead back. So if Armstead says he's 100% ready to go this week, he plays. If they're like, yeah, you know what? Well, you look a little slower out there. Maybe you're favoring something. We're going to hold you back a week. And you still feel okay about it. The fact that we're even discussing this is a win for the Dolphins. That's 3-0. Just go ahead and say it. We're talking about the offensive line having depth and not being terribly, terribly awful. That's a win. That's an extra win.
I think that we can look forward to that, because I don't think that the Broncos are anything to be worth being worried about. If we're talking about Mac Jones and saying, oh, he's not that great, which he's not, let's be honest here. Not that Tua was anything spectacular. His numbers were solid, not like incredibly wow highlight reel worthy. But I wouldn't say he had a bad game. He had an average game for Tua. But if average for him is 249 yards, a touchdown, an interception, and what was his completion percentage? He was 21 of 30. If that's average for Tua, then by all means, I'm happy with that. I'm certainly not upset about that. As for the Patriots, Mac Jones, 31 of 42, 231 yards, a touchdown, interception. It took Mac 10 more completions to get almost 20 yards less than what Tua threw. Mac Jones did the easiest dink and dunk offense that I can possibly imagine. But just to reiterate on the defensive side of things again, I think that's the whole point of the Vic Fangio defense. The entire point of the Vic Fangio defense is force them to just take whatever short little gimmies that they're willing to take up front and then wait for them to screw up, which eventually somebody does. And once that happens, you take advantage of it. Bradley Chubb made a play. He forced a fumble. Xavier Howard made a play, caught an interception intended for Devontae Parker because they were getting impatient or because Mac Jones was getting tired of dinking and dunking, whatever the case may be. The play was made. Javon Holland made a play in the backfield. Christian Wilkins made a play in the backfield. Andrew Van Ginkel was all over the place. Bradley Chubb, again, making plays everywhere. As soon as they make that mistake, that's when the defense is looking at its best. And so I feel like we got to give Vic Fangio some credit here. All right. And just want to go ahead and reiterate here. A lot of stuff going on. Manny, by the way, Manny is in the background, everybody. He's producing for us. Have a good night, Manny. We really appreciate you sticking on with us. I'll take it from here. You have yourself a good night. All right. Just Paris Stevens, are the snapping infractions starting to become a thing? Okay, so yeah, if we're basing it off a thing being that it happens way too often, yes, it's happening way too often. And I don't know why that's taking place. The snapping was not this bad last season. And Connor Williams Connor Williams is already used to playing center. I don't know what's going on there that all of a sudden Connor Williams and Tua cannot seem to get consistent snaps. He's all over you guys. I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but it just feels like how much of this is Connor Williams and how much of this is Tua? Because when you're a center and Tua's literally standing right behind you and all you have to do is just hand him the football, at that point, is it Connor Williams' fault or did Tua fumble the ball? So that's something I would have to ask.
Well, I'm the 2 snaps so far this season that have been fumbles were under center. So maybe that's something they need to work on. I'm sure they have. But I was more concerned that there was 2 or 3 that were there was one that I don't know how fast the ball was supposed to come out, but it looked like it came out harder than it should have come out for a snap. There was high ones, low ones. They're just all over the place, and they can be disruptive. I think there was that one play that Mostert had where the ball came out funny. Tua did something with it. He got the ball. He would have been stopped in the backfield, made a play, gained 7 yards out of it. So it's a great play by Mostert, but that's the kind of stuff that can derail a drive. I mean, Miami has the ball. It's 3rd and 1, and then you have the fumble snap, and they go for the kick. So imagine if that doesn't happen and they run and get a first down. We're not even worried about the end of the game. That's like, well, they're going to, they run the clock out. Miami probably gets another first down or whatever. So, yeah, this is becoming an issue. And it's not just the under center, it's the shotgun snaps as well.
Yeah, that's where I tend to lean that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that hopefully they get that sorted out because this cannot continue throughout the season. Eventually, this is going to come back to bite them in a way that they won't be able to come back from. Like mistakes like that, those are what make or break football games. As much as we don't want it to think like that, as much as we'd like to believe, no matter what the Dolphins run into, they'll be able to overcome it without even blinking. We've already seen just this season alone that that's not the case. We were down to the wire against the Chargers. It almost got ugly tonight. And I know, Eric, you weren't concerned, but Duke and I were literally like wringing our hands thinking, oh my God, it's about to happen again, isn't it? Maybe you're too, like, I'm not the oldest guy in the room. I'm not the youngest guy in the room anymore. Eric, how old are you?
26.
26? Okay, so you haven't suffered as much as Duke and I have. We've seen this happen one too many times where things go horribly wrong at the last moment, and it's like, oh no, not again. You still have some that glimmer of hope in your eyes. And don't ever lose it. Don't ever lose it, okay?
Listen. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been there for almost. I was there for almost the entire reign of Brady, nearly. So I mean, when I started watching it was Fiedler and Ricky. So, I mean, it's just one of those things where it just felt like, I don't know. I feel like the Patriots are now like, and I don't want to belittle them too much. But you know what? We're 2-0. We just beat them in Foxborough. So I'll just they've become the pesky little team that could at this point. They are the mid-2000s Miami Dolphins playing the Patriots difficult at home. That's what they are at this point. And I feel like not to say that it's not important when you beat a divisional opponent on the road. But it just, I don't know. They felt like they're just they're a pesky team.
I wasn't worried until the last moments.
Per se.
I was not worried until there was reason to worry. That's just it. Once I saw that they were getting close to driving down the field and we were this close to, again, I thought they were going to, I didn't even think they were going to overturn that last play. I thought for sure they just let it sit. So, but that was the difference maker. It's like, if they had decided not to overturn it for whatever ungodly reason, we might be having a very different discussion right now. And at that point, it's like, oh, okay, now I'm worried because if they do score that touchdown and they get that 2-point conversion, yeah, game over.
And see at that point, I absolutely would have felt queasy at that point.
And that sequence never happens without a missed field goal or without a bad snap. So, and kickers are going to miss, but it's become a thing with him. And you almost kind of you get nervous when he goes out to kick anymore.
I'm not nervous. I know he's going to miss.
Well, I mean, you had last week.
Also, wait a second. Is that play that the block punt came on? Either one of two things is going to happen, and I'm not sure what it is. Either it's going to be outlawed by the competition committee, or every team in the league is going to start doing it. Are we sure that should be legal?
If he doesn't cross the line, why not?
I mean, yeah, I guess so.
I mean, I could have sworn that would have been something along the lines of an illegal shift or something like that. I figured.
I don't think the defense has to be lined up. I think what you worry yourself with by doing that play,
you just can't leapfrog over the top of everybody.
If you're running from the side, and you come in, you have to time the snap, and he timed it very well. But if you're a kicking team, and they do that, you can hold the ball just a half second longer, and it's a penalty. And then what if that gets you a first down? So I think it'll be one of those things that it'll work a few times, and then after that, when the penalties start happening and the team's like, oh, we held them to a field goal, oh, but now you crossed the line too early because you tried to silly play, and they get a first down, and then they go down and score, and you lose the game by 4 points or whatever. Yeah, you stop that. So I think that will kill itself out. But again, I mean, back to that whole last drive never happens without a missed kick and without the muff snap. Whoever's fault it is, I don't care. It's got to be fixed. That's basic football. And I said kickers are going to miss, but it's become a thing, particularly when you have one that's as well paid as Jason Sanders. So you expect. I mean, yeah, what's his name? Justin Tucker missed, a 60-yard field goal today or a 58-yard field goal? I mean, it happens to the best of them. But he comes back down for like a 49-yarder, nails it with no question. And you just don't feel that way with Sanders. And so if it comes down to a situation like, well, what if, we need a win to get into the playoffs and it comes down to a kick? How do you feel about it? I know exactly how I feel about it. I feel exactly the way I felt tonight with that queasy feeling in my stomach. If it's, 3rd and 7, and they've got to get a first down, and you see Tua back there ready to take a snap. Now, when Tua has the ball in his hands, I expect good things. I mean, they convert third downs. I remember when a 2nd and 9 was pretty much a punt. I mean, we all remember those days. It's like, all right, it's 2nd and 9. They might as well punt on 3rd down because they're not getting a first down. And now it's like, oh, it's 3rd and 13. Tua's got this. We don't care. And they'll get, even if they don't get it, they'll get close. So I remember those bad days. But now it's like, what if that snap goes over his head? It's almost like this tense moment. It's like, all right, he's got the ball now. Everything's cool. You don't expect him to throw picks or any of that kind of stuff. It's bad snapping. It's bad kicking. The punter, he had one good kick, and the rest were not even that great. So, I mean, what's going on there? And I get they can't get out of Sanders' contract until next year. But, I mean, I don't know what Bailey's making, whether they can get out of it, but I would think about it. Bring back Michael Turk. I mean, just whatever. Just these are basic things that just can't happen. And it works against a New England team that's not as talented as you are. That's not going to work against the Buffalo Bills. That's not going to work against the Chiefs. That's not going to work against the Eagles or the Cowboys. And I would even go as far as to say it's probably not even going to work against the Jets as good as their defense is. So, you've got to, and I don't want to, I know they got beat up pretty bad today and their quarterback situation's off, but I mean, these are teams that have talent and they can beat you. Division games are always wild anyway, but you've got to just basic things. And I mean, this is not stuff that the other team's taking away from you. All right, well, they scheme Tyreek out. That's great. You've got other options. You're running the ball. You're doing things. They find a way to get around your defensive scheme. Okay, you adjust. Snapping the football and kicking the football. You can't mess it up, and somehow the Dolphins are messing it up.
And I'm going to go ahead and I know that we're getting ready to wrap up pretty quick, but I want to just go ahead and quickly mention Hussam Patel just popped into the show, so I wanted to go ahead and let Hussam have his say. I think he's on the road based on what I was hearing in the background, but Hussam, what was your thoughts of this game? And let's just we'll wrap it up with you, my friend.
Well, I'm honored that I'm able to end this show, save the greatest for last, kind of like how Andrew Van Ginkel saved his best performance for last in that game. I did not expect that big of a game from Andrew Van Ginkel. I think we need to stop considering him as an off-ball linebacker and more so as an edge rusher. There's a reason Vic Fangio wanted to bring back Andrew Van Ginkel, and I think we're seeing why. He's able to complement this defensive line so well just with his rush and his bend. He doesn't need to stick his hand on the ground. He can become an off-ball pass rusher and really get inside and outside and immediately get pressure, get to the quarterback, make those plays. I mean, he had 7, 8 tackles, 1 sack or 1.5 sack, and I think it was a fumble on that Mac Jones incomplete pass. Could have been a fumble, couldn't have been a fumble, but he really impacted the game on defense tonight. As far as the offense, I mean, that half-speed motions that the Dolphins are doing, they're basically running 3-4 plays out of the formation every single time. So Bill Belichick didn't have an answer for it. Brandon Staley didn't have an answer for it. I'm curious to see if any defensive coordinator has an answer for it because it's so reliant on Tyreek Hill speed, Jalen Waddle speed, Raheem Mostert speed. Even Durham, Smythe, and River Craycraft are out there motioning, just getting space for Tua to throw to. I was reading this stat on Next Gen Stats over on Twitter before I got on the road. Tua had the 4th quickest time of all quarterbacks since 2020. He had 2.08 seconds to throw, or something like that. 2.08 seconds to throw on average against the New England Patriots. I mean, the pass rush and the pressure was getting there. He got sacked once, was pressured 3-4 times, but man, he was getting the ball out quick. And this is against a Bill Belichick defense, which is always well coached. Granted, the Patriots were out 2 starting corners. They were banged up a little bit in the secondary. But let me tell you, man, Bill Belichick's defense, he had 3 safeties deep, and I won't be surprised to see a lot of defensive coordinators follow this model. Not let the Dolphins throw it deep, but make them dink and dunk over the field and really get them to run the ball a little bit more. I didn't think the Dolphins would run the ball so much just because of how aggressive Mike McDaniel is with the pass, but I mean, credit to him, credit to the offensive line, credit to Raheem Mostert as well. I mean, they ran the ball well. They played sound defense against New England, and that's a success for winning in the NFL most days. Not only can the Dolphins' offense attack you, on the air, but also on the ground. So it was a nice change of pace to see.
So what you're saying is they're always in control.
And when you're talking Miami, you're talking Super Bowl.
Perfect segue. Perfect. So yeah, Bill Belichick didn't have an answer. Brandon Staley didn't have an answer. And guess who else is not going to have an answer? Friggin' Vance Joseph, man. He's not going to have no answer for this. Vance Joseph is the defensive coordinator for the Denver Broncos again. So yeah. That's just I'm not concerned about the Dolphins not being able to put up yards and points against the Denver Broncos defense. And also,
I will say this about Denver: they have some talented players on their defense. So they were one of the better defenses last year, and had they had a competent offense, they probably would have been a playoff contending team. So I wouldn't overlook them. I'm glad we're kind of getting them now early in the season because they're going to be in South Florida. It's going to be 1,000 degrees. Bills fans are going to be crying about it, even though they're not even playing. And it's going to be one of those games. So, and they're going to be in the dark jerseys, I assume. And this offense is going to be a year better. But yeah, I agree. I don't think Vance Joseph's going to have an answer, but they've got some talented guys over there. A certain son of a Dolphin alumni to be watch out for.
Patrick Surtain. Yeah, well.
Yep.
Has he faced Tyreek Hill yet?
Well, I don't know. I was watching that Denver game and 35 points to Sam Howell and company. And I like Sam Howell, actually.
But he's not Tua.
Exactly.
And Terry, as good as he is, Terry McLaurin is not Tyreek Hill. All right. I feel like we've called it here. Any final thoughts before we go?
2-0.
It's a win.
Win's a win. 2-0. Miami Dolphins are first in the AFC East, right?
Yes.
They are.
There you go. Now, what else can you ask for at this point? So, I'm going to go ahead and call it here. Thank you all so much for listening. Big thanks, as always, to Biscayne Bay Brewery for hosting the watch party. And make sure you go to prizepicks.com. Use the promo code 5. That's FIVE. They'll match up to $100 on your deposit. And if you were picking it out, you might have noticed that they had discounted Tyreek Hill's receiving yards. They do discounts like that all the time. Make sure you're taking advantage of those while you can. That's going to be it for this show. We will see you all next week for more Miami Dolphins football. No Fins Nation tomorrow morning. I have to go to bed, but we will have one for you Tuesday. You have a good night, everybody.